Hello there, welcome back to another episode. Today I'm going to talk about Waterworld, the infamous Kevin Costner film that cost a fortune. It was the highest budget film of 1985. It was the one that was the highest budget of all time for about a year. I mean, this film was notorious for having a massive budget. They went way over budget. Everyone thought, okay, this is the Heaven's Gate of the new decade. It's going to be horrible. And within a year, James Cameron had topped that budget. So this budget was $180 million. Then Titanic went to $200 million. So, I mean, like, it didn't last long for being infamous. And then the film had a notorious editing behind the scenes fiasco as well, where the director either quit or was fired or was forced out. Definitely the sense he was forced out, like he wasn't going to play ball with them. So Costner came on board and actually recut the film his way, and that was the film we got. And then much later, like there was always rumours of a longer cut. There was a better version of the film, and eventually it was released a TV cut with edits for language and things. Then at some point there was another cut which was called the Ulysses cut that was the same cut as the TV cut, but it was the language put back in, the violence put back in. And Arrow released a film, a version of this in a box set. I mean, for a while it's hard to get hold of, but Arrow released it, and now you actually can buy, if you buy the 4K version, you can actually see the both cuts on the 4K version, but the 4K is the theatrical cut and it's 1080p for the Ulysses cut. But you can see, so there's different releases now. You actually can get the Ulysses cut, and pretty easily now. I mean, you can get it through Arrow or you can get it through the 4K. So that's the kind of basic background I had to do before I started of Waterworld. Notorious over budget. It came out and it did okay. I mean, I don't see how it made its money back ever because it cost so much. And it didn't do that well in America, it did well overseas. But it was a film that was a problem. It was a likeable film, but you could see the damage done by making of it. You felt there was stuff missing. And there were plot holes. There were massive plot holes. Not all of which were fixed when you saw the long version, but some were. Like, some things were fixed that helped the film a lot. I mean, I would say straight away that the theatre cut, the Ulysses cut, is the better version of the film by a mile. It's easily the best version. It's the version of the film you should see because it is the best version. You know, it feels that's the version of the film. If the film hadn't cost as much as it had, that's probably the version that might have been forced to get released because it was a more nuanced version. It actually filled in a lot of holes and it was paced a lot better. You didn't feel it was rushing. The thing about the original cut of the film was it was almost like rushing through certain bits to get to the next bit, and there was a lot missing. And I think that was some of the big problems between Costner and Kevin Reynolds, the director. Because Kevin Reynolds is a good director, but he's a mood director, and he built a lot of his work through the mood of the piece and creating a mood that will actually explain a lot. And this thing was about plot, the theatrical cut. So it became an issue of it's very flawed. There's lots of stuff thinking, why did that happen? I mean, there's still a lot of things thinking, why did that happen? And we'll see the Ulysses cut. A lot of the flaws do feel like it was stuff done by the producers of the studio, saying like we need to make this more fun. Because one of the things you hear a lot was that the difference between Kevin Reynolds, the director, and Costner in the studio was Reynolds wanted a darker film, and the studio wanted something lighter. And to be honest, the darker stuff is the better stuff, and the lighter stuff is the stuff that's the bit grating, because they're trying too hard. So that's the kind of problem with the film. The film was basically released in a botched state. So the story basically is that the ice caps have melted, the water has risen, and the worlds have been flooded, and we're falling into another dark ages. Basically, humanity's lost all hope, a lot of the different civilizations have gone onto these things called atolls, which are floating cities that people live in, and they grow stuff and they survive by having a limited population, but making sure there are only enough people there that you can actually feed. And you trade with each other. Other people live on the ocean and who scrap with each other and trade goods. So they're kind of basically traders. And basically people try and survive the best they can. And by the time the film has started, most of those atolls have died off. They've been attacked by the smokers, who are led by Dennis Hopper, who are the kind of extreme capitalists who don't build anything, do not try and do anything. They will just attack and steal and take all the fuel that's been left, all the fuel humanity, and we'll just abuse it and use it. They've got cigarettes for some reason, which is one of the plot holes, like, why is this ever happening? It's just a sign of corruption, but it doesn't make any sense of why they've stopped cigarettes. So that's one of the things that feels like a weird gimmick of the studio. Because the smokers themselves have good points and bad points, but there are some real weird logics in smokers. So anyway, so into this world comes Kevin Costner, who's this mutation. He lives by himself on a boat that he's basically been building up over time to protect himself from humanity who will kill him because of a mutation. He can survive underwater by himself. He has had to basically teach himself because no one ever wanted him because of a mutation. So he's never really learned how to be civilized. He views people as dangerous animals. He doesn't like people, like, at all. He has no time for them. He's just going to try and survive as he can and try and find out information where he can. So he's like a librarian almost of the world. He's always trying to find information and try and find what's out there and what's available and trying to help people. Not help people, but help himself understand what the people were. If that's the best way to say it. I mean, let's not go too far ahead of ourselves here. The guy he hates people. But he's a character who's very dysfunctional and kind of nasty a lot of the time, which is the thing that's likeable about the character. Ultimately, is the fact he's a lead in this massive budget film is very unsocial and pretty nasty for 2/3 of the film. You know, which is really enjoyable to watch. And he isn't quite the same as people. He's got webbed feet and he's got little gills in the back of his ears, which makes him be underwater. And he's basically the people have started to mutate because on water for so long, and a lot of people who grew up without mutations are paranoid about it because it means the end of humanity. It's just humanity evolving to survive on the water. See, that's what's come across on the director's Ulysses cut, the longer cut. All that stuff becomes apparent, like the paranoia about stuff, how stupid they are at certain things. These people are not very smart. The people who survived are following things that have been dropped down to them over decades or centuries by other people when the tools were still working. And now they've been building things and they don't understand anything. They become more and more degraded over time as more information's being lost through time. And they're desperate, and all these atolls have died off, mainly because of smokers. And no one's learned to defend himself very well, and it's just become a hellhole on Earth. Basically, human beings are about to die off. I mean, this is like the last stand of humanity. Humanity's ready to drop off the Earth. I mean, it's pretty much done. Because all you've really got are the smokers who are idiots, and the people in the atolls who are idiots, and the smokers are attacking the atolls all the time and destroying them just for the resources, and the people in the atolls are turning on each other and are dying off slowly. They're going mad, and it's just like a hellhole. And there's a myth of dry land which no one's ever seen. And into this sort of hellhole becomes this little girl who's got a map on her back, tattooed on her back, about the way to dry land, but no one can read it, and no one knows to understand from the information they have of how to get there, because their information is just totally destroyed. So the film shows you the clues to get to dry land over time. But it tells you more on the extended cut, which actually makes more sense because it shows you a lot more about how degraded they've become and how hard it is to figure anything out because they're so stupid now. So it becomes more. It's more interesting to watch, really, because you're actually seeing them try to figure it out more because they've lost so much information. Because when in the theatrical cut, it's almost like why they're so stupid. In the extended version, it's like you can see why they're so stupid. They've fallen so far into like superstition. I mean, the idea of the little girl with the map in her back is the worst part of the film in a sense because it's like how did she get there and not die of starvation and lack of water in the water? It's never explained. It's meant to be a mythical thing, so you have to accept it as that and move on. I mean, otherwise, you're gonna go mad. So you just have to accept that. That's just the way it goes, and that's the thing that sets the world up. And so the smokers are looking for her as well. They've heard about her because they want to find dry land, and because they are as desperate as anyone else, they don't want to admit it. So it all comes together in the first third in this atoll, which is the big thing you see behind me, where the smokers attack, try and find her. Costner's about to be killed by the people in the atoll because he's a mutant, and all hell breaks loose. So we find this battle, which is still a very impressive battle. I mean, it's the one thing this film has going for it is that they did a lot of stuff practically. The money was spent practically on these sets and on these stunts and people riding and like speedboat, not the speedboats, like planes dragging people with on skis. You've got these little bike boat things going on that are all very rotted. You've got these other boats that are attack boats, and it's pretty much like the Middle Ages, but on water, and they're attacking, and it's really visually fascinating how they do it all, and they've really put a lot of work into this, and the physicality, because you can't really, this was made before CGI became really apparent. Like the worst parts of this film for effects are the CGI, because there's this very early, and there's no way to hide it. I don't think the money was spent on the CGI the way it was spent on the practical stunts. And the practical stunts are amazing. The stunts work is great. I watched this projected, the Ulysses cut projected, and it looks amazing for the style, for the practicality of it all. Just they put the work in. I mean, this was not a film that's phoned in by anybody. Everybody went through hell to make this film. It's like it's a shame they didn't have some of the script problems solved, but they really went through hell. I mean, also the direction's very good because it's designed a certain way. You can understand where the action always is. You understand where everyone is physically. And it's just well done. It's a film that when it was released, it was almost like one of the big things was the director got fired, but that's the best part of the film, his direction. And even in that, it's been cut, the way it was cut in the tactical cut, you lost a lot of the better parts of direction there because just the way the style was. But you actually get a lot more of in the Ulysses cut because you get a sense of how everything kind of comes together logically, and you do get a sense of a world here. Even though scientifically the oceans would not rise that far, even the ice caps melted. But it's enough to make it interesting for this myth they're trying to tell. So if you get into that, the idea is it's not realism, but they're trying to give a realistic base to this fantasy world, you're going to be fine. So, throughout the whole movie, all the stunts are great, because there's some great scenes where Costa moving down a sail, like it's an old-fashioned pirate movie, like he's he can swim in really interesting ways causing rotation. There's lots of just very graceful stunts going through this film that are really well done. So that stuff is organised really well. That's the bit. Whenever time there's an action scene, it's always worth seeing because they really put the effort in. Apart from the last one, we'll get to the last one. But the first 2/3 of the action, the first 2/3 are always well done and very inventive. And the character stuff in the first 2/3 is fun too because everyone's grumpy to each other and everyone's nasty, and Costa doesn't like people and the people don't like him, and it feels legitimately a lot of legitimate grievances going on, and it feels like that's the way it would be in this kind of situation. If you're stuck in this world where there's no land, people would be this way. They would be this nasty. The film just keeps going that way. The middle part really is, but they're in a boat. I mean, the three characters: Costa's character, the little girl, and the woman who looks after the little girl, and it's played by Janine Triplehorn, who was in Basic Instinct in this, to then to disappear. She's a fine actress. She's an okay actress. I was like, I never was surprised she disappeared so quick. And the tension between all three are good. It's nice to see them. They interact with the boat and they just don't like each other for a long time. And because Costa just doesn't understand people and they don't understand him, they think he's a psychopath, and he probably is for a long time. Because he has to deal with the fact that they're looking for dry land and he thinks it doesn't exist. Because he's been around everywhere and he has never seen it. And he thinks they're delusional, trying to think, oh, what do I do with these bloody people now? Because I'm stuck with them in this boat, I don't want them. And I've taken away all the water, the drinkable water, and how do I deal with this thing? This is terrible. So he's trying to find a way to get rid of them. And he is thinking of selling to slavers, because he doesn't want anything to do with them. But they start to grow him a little bit, but he still try to work out what to do with them. And when all hell breaks loose, when he realises the smokers are after the little girl for a reason, to find dry land, and he didn't think it exists. At least an effect sequence where he goes underwater with Janine Triplehorn, he's got a raft thing and he can take her down in it. Don't know why he's got one of those, because he doesn't like people, but it's there for the scene. It's one of those inventions for the movie that doesn't make sense when you think about it too much. But it shows how the underwater cities, where he managed to get all the... he sells them, the people in it holds all this dirt, pure dirt, which means they can grow stuff in the dirt and he can get goods for the dirt. So he just gets it from under the ocean. And I mean, it's just one of those things that you see. Maybe the storage thing is for where he stores everything. I don't know. But that's what he does. There's a nice little sequence showing a bit. We wish it was longer. Even the extended version, you wish it was longer. I mean, the weird thing there is that's how he gets caught, because he stops to show all this stuff after he's just had a fight scene with the villains. And it's like, why did you stop? Like, there. Why not did drive for ages away before you did that? It doesn't make any sense. It never makes sense in the theatrical version. It doesn't make sense in the extended version. They don't give a reason. They just, because it comes straight after. They don't have to say it's a few days later or something. They don't do that. It seems to fall immediately. It's a really stupid thing. And that's about the plot problem sometimes. It's like, people do things for stupid reasons. And you get feeling it's a film that had a lot of interference with the writing. I mean, one of the guy who wrote the original idea for Roger Corman, he's credited. Then David Toy came on board and he wrote the script and he's credited. And he writes a lot of sci-fi like Riddick, which is more like a mean world, a difficult world to survive in. Which is this film, so obviously he got credit for that. Then there was other writers after him adding stuff and taking away stuff like Joss Whedon and stuff like that. And there are times when you can feel it in the film that there's some stuff there that maybe there's something in between those scenes that would explain why they maybe went a while before he did that or not. Because you see Hopper set up trackers for him, but then instantly he goes underwater. So it's like, why did this thing happen? So you get a feeling of some scenes cut out there in between. It's really weird. There's lots of stuff like that. You feel there's some scenes cut out. But the extended version, you do get a lot more of the world, so it doesn't matter so much. In the theatrical, it's a bit grating sometimes. People do some stupid thing to get the plot going. And as the film progresses, it starts to dissolve into itself a little bit. Was the best way to put it. Plotting is not as good. There's like the first half of the film basically is Costa goes to the atoll, he gets caught as a mutant, he has to escape from the atoll with these two people, and they have to try and survive together. And that's very simple, streamlined storytelling, and you get everything, it's fine. It's just when the smokers actually have to plot, the film becomes a problem. Because as soon as they're actually on Costa and he knows they're aware of them, that's when the film just starts to lose its despairing. But basically the smokers are very vague. And you feel they never quite worked them out before they started shooting. And you're feeling like the director wanted a very dark thing of these people who are basically animals on a ship and had all these weapons and were just destroying everything. And they were destroying the world of people who were trying to make a living on this thing. They were just destructive. But the studio just seemed to be a case of, hire Dennis Hopper, make it funny, and give him cigarettes and have him funny lines, and it just becomes this thing of, I'm trying to play along and try to make this work, but it was just a bit silly, and it just becomes this thing that drags the film down. So the second half of the film, you have to deal with these people who have been set up as a threat physically, but verbally haven't, and Hopper's hamming it up really badly in this film. Like, he's not been toned down at all. And you get a sense that they're not quite worked the character out, so just to try and be funny. Because he's interested in golf, why would he know about golf if he's in a world that's been drowned for centuries? And he's the one that Exxon Valdez as their ship. And it's just one of those things where there's lots of little things that don't quite work there, that's just like silly. Even all these cigarettes you can throw around, the way they find the cigarettes is like, it's the thing where you start the logic starts to go out the window because it's just sort of silliness. It doesn't seem to be tied to what you've seen in the first half of the film. It just seems like the studio's saying you have to do this, this, this. And you get a sense of that is why the director left. At a certain point it's like they were adding silly stuff to appeal to the people, but it was actually kind of taking away the world. So eventually, I mean, the big compromise at the end, but there's a lot of CGI at the end, in between the practical stuff, and it looks fake. But Costner has to go against hundreds of people to save this little girl who's been captured by the big bad villains and save them and then find dry land. I mean, a lot happens in the last 40 minutes of this film that goes doo 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 doo. In the theatrical cut, it's really one thing after another, and it's absurd, and it takes away from what the film's been building. And the Ulysses cut is a bit better. It's more spread out because initially Costner did not go after the girl. It takes him time to work out that she knows where dry land is. But that's his process, and he's not even doing that to go to dry land. He doesn't care about dry land. But you get a process of him slowly working out he wants to go and get her. And it makes a much better conclusion. And the theatrical cut, it's like, duh, duh, duh. And it's like, okay, I guess he's going to be a hero. It's a bit meaner in the Ulysses cut, but still, you have all this stuff about how much a hero he is, because it's from the original film, and it doesn't really work. It's just a bit silly. I mean, how he destroys the boat is good fun, because he finds out where the fuel supply is, and he drops this thing down to blow it up. But it's a flare, and it's why the flares in this world? They've all been gone years ago. It doesn't make sense, but it blows it up, and it's a nice image, so that's fine. But it's still a kind of a bit of silliness that's kind of annoying. But the whole fast third is kind of you're feeling they should have. I think it was a case of we have to get the film's way over budget, so we have to have an ending on a thing that builds a set rather than all in the water. When you need to build in the water, so it's a compromise where it's an ending not using what they actually had as the big selling point, and you kind of feel you've become set bound in a compromised ending, and so there's a lot more dialogue and Dennis Hopper's going way over the top, and it's unsatisfying. But they get through that, it's fun enough for what it is, but it's a big jump down in quality for the film, and even the Ulysses cut can't really save it. It's just you just have to endure this bit as he's killing all these people, all these idiots. But you get through it because the first 2/3 are enough interesting action, interesting character stuff to make it through that. But it's kind of a big letdown. The good thing though is it does end well. They find dry land. It works. Finding dry land and what it means works better than the Ulysses cut, because they make it more obvious that even people who survive the atoll and there's survivors there, they abandon everybody to survive on their own, and they will not go after the girl. Costner goes after the girl, he helps her, and other people go after the girl with him. They all find her, they all help them succeed, and at that point have worked out the route to dry land. So they go to dry land, the ones who actually were brave and decent go to dry land. The others get left to rot in the water because they're so selfish, which I like. That's much more apparent in the Ulysses cut, like. And after they find dry land, after they've worked out it's Mount Everest, and it's turned into this green paradise, he says Costner goes back onto the water because he can't really survive on the land because he's mutated so much that it's like he just can't. He feels ill on land. Those other people don't, but he does. But he says so. He gets on board. He's going to start building up again the way he did before. But he said if he finds people who are decent, he'll tell them where it is and send them to him. But he's not going to send people who are awful. You know, he's not going to send people who are smokers or people who are just like lunatics that you saw on the scenes earlier on in the Ulysses cut. He's going to send the decent people he finds out there. You know, tell them where dry land is, and he will teach them how to find it. But the other ones he won't. But he can't stay. And there's a nice thing of his partnering with the little girl and the woman because they're bonded a bit now, and he likes them. And the thing about the Ulysses cut is they make it much clearer in this cut that Costner is so socially misaligned that it's not that he's awful. It's just that he doesn't even taught any of this stuff. So it's a much more human thing of people who are very damaged dealing with each other. They still keep in a love scene with him and her that's really awkward, that's in this cut, that this doesn't fit in. There's a kiss scene at the end which works a lot better because it's a bit more affectionate. It's not really it's more awkward and it really works a lot better. It's like they should have cut the love scene seems a bit weird. I guess it was in the theatrical as well, and it was set in this garbage wrecked ship, and it always seemed appropriate for where it was set for how garbage the scene was, because it's a scene that did not work like, at all. The characters aren't that close at that point. It's like, why would they do this scene? It's like, it doesn't work. It seems a bit awkward writing, awful writing. So this is a film full of nice moments and then weirdness. It's a very schizo film. So that's the film. That's my what the hell is this? I didn't mention it's a what the hell is this film at the beginning. I forgot to mention that. That's what it is, and it is wonderful. I adore this film, but it is a mess. It really is a mess. Even the Ulysses cut's a mess, but I really enjoy it. It's wonderfully odd, and there's some really great practical stunts, and there's some really wayward stuff as well. Because it's a film that was messed around, but it was made by talented people who were getting screwed over by the weather, by disagreements, by their studio making it, by the panic of the studio making it when the film was way over budget. It's just a film that had no luck, but they somehow made something decent out of it, even though it's very, very, very flawed. But it's definitely worth trying out, especially the longer cut. The longer cut does feel shorter. It's kind of like Alien 3 cut, where if you didn't like the original film, you're not going to like the extended cut that much either. But if you did like the original film or thought there was some elements in it that was worthwhile, you'll find a lot more in the extended cut that will actually make it more worthwhile film for you. And it makes more sense, but it's still a very flawed film. Hopefully this all makes sense to you. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it was worthwhile listening to me yap about Waterworld. That's my final video for the week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with some more videos next week. Right, bye for now.